welcome back. Quick question for you. Are you earning more than you were 5 years ago? Now, here's the thornier one. If you are, do you actually feel better off? There is a sneaky phenomenon that can quietly hoover up every pay rise, every bonus, every step up the career ladder. It's called lifestyle creep, and it might just be the single biggest obstacle between you and that comfortable financial future you're working towards. So, how can you keep that destructive phenomenon at bay?
My husband got made redundant when I was 7 months pregnant, and we are resilient and we found a way through all of that.
I'll pay a 1 month free subscription and then end up paying it for a long time. So there's
How many do you have?
There are so many, and I might even miss some.
The 99 can sound a lot, but the 2 pints at the pub is 2 months of a Netflix subscription, you know?
So, here to help us spot, stop, and maybe even reverse lifestyle creep, we have 3 guests who know all about it. Edoardo Moreni is the co-founder and CEO of Emma, the personal finance app that helps over 1 million people track their spending, subscriptions, and their net worth. He has seen firsthand what happens to people's money when they don't keep an eye on it. Content creator Clare is one of the UK's most trusted personal finance voices. She's chronicled her own journey out of debt, and she's written books on the psychology and practicalities of spending. She is, in her own words, a recovering lifestyle creeper. From PensionBee, this time, Alex Langley, Head of Customer Success, and back for his second appearance on the podcast. He spends his days talking to PensionBee customers about their money, so he's seen what lifestyle creep can do to people's finances, including his own. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Look, lifestyle creep is essentially spending, more as you earn more and falling into that trap of just never really feeling any wealthier. Obviously, it can be about big purchases. My feeling is that it's about the small stuff for a lot of us. I was thinking about this very morning. I came into King's Cross Station. I spent £4.50 on a white Americano. I looked at it. I thought about the podcast. I thought, this is a ridiculous amount of money to spend. But I do it. I do it often. What do you guys do? I bet you've got similar stuff.
Oh, for me, keeping lifestyle creep at bay is like playing whack-a-mole, honestly, because I think I've got youngish children, so they're age 3 to 11 and 1 in the middle. And so it's so easy to spend more on them, because as you have more money, you just sort of think, why not, when they ask for things, and you have to really rein yourself in. But also about things to fix myself. I'm 36, so I'm not even that old, but I'm just being advertised collagen and creatine and all of these things.
Edoardo, what is it for you?
I think my new lifestyle creep since last year has been clothes.
Oh, really?
It's really bad. It's
okay,
really,
now we need to know why
is.
this has suddenly arrived in your life.
I think, because I am 33 and up until the age of 32, I was hanging on these Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, and that was my sort of look. And after that age, I decided, okay, no, now we need a reset. And I start buying. And it is a disease, it's it never ends,
Yeah, I know, there is no end. Alex, what's it for you?
Mine is a lot of beauty stuff. Very vain, very shallow. Because, you go to Holland & Barrett or you go to Boots and you think, this purchase is going to change my life. It's going to change everything. And once I've got this cream, everything's going to be better. And then, of course, you inevitably use it, and it doesn't solve all of your problems. But
are you buying more expensive stuff as you earn more?
This is the thing. I will buy more, and then it sort of builds. And now I've got into I get Botox as well, and so it all sort of builds up over time.
Well, I think, we'll get on to the what, more about the what. But the why is interesting to me. I mean, we've talked a bit about kind of slipping into it, and there's age and there's kids and things. But what do we think?
I think what I see happening is that you have kind of your current means and your life where it is. It's like one circle. And then outside of that, there's a bigger circle of what you'd like your life to be like. And honestly, I kind of think that as your means grow, as long as that outside circle is really intentional and it's stuff that you value and it's stuff that's going to bring joy or security or something, it's going to bring something to your life, then I actually think that expanding out into that circle is fine. So, you know, if that's as you earn more, you haven't been on holiday for years, so you'd like to add in a holiday because it's going to bring some value. Or even for so many people, like more regular trips to the dentist or swimming lessons for your children or some education. I think that's absolutely fine. But what we quite often happen is that as your kind of actual circle of means expands, that external circle keeps expanding as well. So you keep kind of sucking more things into that. The goalposts just continue to move as you achieve the things that you want to achieve.
I think there's kind of trigger points as well, aren't there? Things like, you know, even your first salary, your first job. I mean, you know, we all spent when we got our first pay packet, right? And it creeps up on you, but promotion, you know, maybe you're moving in with a partner, buying a home. All these things feel like justification, don't they, to spend more? But as you say, it's that thing about it being intentional rather than just kind of luring you on.
But, you know, I think, you know, as long as you don't spend more than what you make and savings and investments are counted in, there's no problem with that, you know.
I think it's about like having some boundaries, but not in terms of be really strict with yourself. I think for me, sometimes it comes down a bit to keeping like a level of respect for like your future self, making sure that you're just holding your future self like in regard and taking them into account. And this is from someone who also orders a lot, like too much delivery.
I mean, we
because
all
life
too
is
much
so
delivery.
exhausting, isn't it?
I do. I tell you where I think the difficulty arises for a lot of people who work. So I'm freelance, and the series producer of this podcast, she's freelance too, and we've talked about this. That all that's great if you're on a kind of regular income. If you're freelance or self-employed, your income often isn't like that. There's real kind of feast and famine, and you might go through kind of months and months where you're really, really reining everything in. And the temptation when things, you know, you get a new contract or, you know, your rates go up or more money suddenly arises, to really splurge because you do feel you deserve it. There are some things you definitely do need that you haven't got. And then before you know it, that's the new normal, you know. So
I think
the predictability of your income is a factor, I think, isn't it?
I think you're so right. And I think that an emotion that's really underestimated when it comes to like emotional spending and lifestyle creep and all of that is relief. Sometimes if you are feeling the pinch a bit, like you said, if you've just gone through a period where, you know, it's more famine than feast, or if you've been kind of working in a job, maybe you're like training and you're on a lower wage, but then you get a promotion. Sometimes that feeling of relief is really dangerous because you're like, oh, I can finally let go, and you just let go too much. That's definitely happened to me many times in the past.
And it is other people, isn't it? It's kind of the general expectation of the people you know, friends, family, how they're spending, how they're living. You know, you're spending time with them. It's kind of weird if you're penny pinching all the time. I find that drags your spending higher, don't you find? Because obviously incomes vary radically. You might have friends who are working in the city earning a load of money and people who are working in jobs where it's really, really low pay. But you're still all friends. You're still seeing each other.
I mean, you know, you don't have to spend it if you can't afford it, you know. Like, I go back to that point that you don't have to go out, you don't have to entertain yourself. If you can't, stay at home, you know.
Oh, sounds a bit dull. It's a bit hardcore.
But like, you know, that's the whole point. Is like, you know, why do people overspend? Because they're not in control, and you know, there is no, you know, having like a humble life in control is like a valuable life, you know.
I think I would always fall in the middle ground of that. I really feel like you can embrace like some joy in the in-between of that. And I think one of the things you're talking about, like staying at home by yourself and not doing very much versus going out and spending a load of money. But I think in the in-between there, like have people over to your house. And I always say this, like one of the most generous things that you can do is invite people into your home. Tell them to bring something so that you're sharing the cost. Like someone brings a bottle, someone brings like a dessert, whatever it might be. But like, please have people round to your house even when it doesn't look like a show home, even when it's not like super tidy, because then it gives other people permission to invite you and their other friends and family to their house, even if it doesn't look perfect.
food
Yeah.
is a big one. Where you buy food. So you start out at the kind of cheap supermarkets, right? And then as time goes on, as you earn more, you kind of creep up the chain, don't you? And you end up at Waitrose.
I'm an Ocado girl through and through.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about here.
That's a quite interesting point. When I started the company, my starting salary was like 25k for the first 2 years. And I was not going to Waitrose, buying the burrata from Waitrose was like,
Absolutely not.
just terrifying, right? I still remember that feeling,
Advertising has a lot to answer for here, doesn't it? Because, all the stuff like meal kits, this whole thing of your time poor, what you need are meal kits delivered to your home. They are very expensive. We can agree on that, can't we?
After that initial offer that they drag you in with that's like really good value, and then they just trust that it's like any subscription, they just sort of trust that you'll forget to cancel.
Yeah, subscriptions though. I mean, you mentioned subscription. We talked about meal kit subscriptions. Let's talk about other subscriptions, Alex. Because I've heard that you've got a lot of them.
Oh God, it's terrible, isn't it? I am one of those people that signs up for the free 1 month trial, and because in my life, like I would say at work, I'm quite organised, and I think I organise myself out.
Yeah.
It's like the ability to be organised, it's been used up. And so in my normal life, everything just is very, bury my head in the sand. Oh, I'll pay a 1 month free subscription and then end up paying it for a long time. So there's
How many do you have?
There are so many, and I might even miss some.
We have time.
I have the standard ones. So I have Spotify, I have Amazon Prime, and I also have Netflix. And actually just those three combined costs £419 a year on average if you have sort of a standard package.
That's a lot of money.
But those aren't the only ones I have. So I also
The others are. I'm having to drag this out of my mind. Is it just me feeling like I'm having to drag it out?
I also have Disney Plus, I have Hulu, I have Sky. I also once was paying for, Mario Kart on the phone. You can pay to get like the different skins, and I wanted like all the different ones. So I paid like a small subscription for that, and it wasn't a lot, but that's the point. You sign up to it and it's $7.99, but that $7.99 adds on to the $8.99 over here, and it all adds up. And I found
times 12
that I had a lot of them.
Edoardo, you got data, haven't you, on this? How much the average person spends?
Yeah, a lot of money. I think, Emma is famous for tracking all your subscriptions in one place, and it's almost like 1 in 2 people that download the app, they see duplicate subscriptions running through their bank account. And
Do you know what the average Brit spends every year? Take a guess on subscriptions.
500 quid?
696.
Yeah.
This is the average Brit. That's 58 a month. But there are going to be people, look at you, Alex, who are at the other end of the scale, spending a
that's
lot
worried
more.
me, that-
And people like Edoardo, I presume, not spending anything. Do you have any subscriptions at all?
actually, I can show you because I've got them here in my pocket. I think I've got probably 15 of
But it's a thing, isn't it? And there's more and more and more of them, and they all feel like things you kind of have to have.
I mean, one of the problems is that I'm paying to essentially rent things. I'm not actually, where is that money going? Am I actually purchasing anything? Not really.
But because we talk about a lot of subscriptions as they're like bad things, but we always forget that like a pint in London costs like £7, £7.50.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes it's not even about the subscriptions, it's about how you spend your money and how you live your life. The 99 can sound a lot, but the 2 pints at the pub is 2 months of a Netflix subscription, so...
And this loops us back to that thing that Claire was saying about, you need to be intentional about it, which means you need to know that you're doing it. So audit what you're spending,
Of
right?
course.
But if I always say to people, if that coffee is what makes the difference, like if that's the thing that you look forward to every day on your way to work and it makes the commute bearable and you savor every mouthful of it, then that spending is fine. If you can afford it, that spending's fine. If it is just a habit and you pick it up and you often throw half of it away and you're just doing it on autopilot, then that's a waste. So I think it's about, you have to kind of interrogate every one, because that what is valuable to me is not going to be what's valuable to you. So I think it's about that. I wanted to go back to subscriptions just for 1 second. It was a really quick win that people can do, is that if you've got a partner and I mean, it's really good to talk to your partner about money anyway, but please sit down and make sure that you're not both subscribed to the same thing. Because me and my husband, like, we both had Netflix subscriptions, and at one point I think we both had like a Disney Plus subscription, and we have Sky, which includes Disney Plus, so we were paying for it 3 times. So I think if you can just sit down, that can be a really good insight in conversation for like a broader conversation about your finances. Obviously, we all know that people don't really talk to their partner enough about money.
I already know I've got duplicate subscriptions with my husband, particularly things like Amazon Prime, because and I just haven't done anything about it. It's like you saying, Alex, super organised at work, and then your own personal life, somehow part of the being in downtime is that you're not quite as on it as you would be at work and stuff. But I have got better. I mean, do you not diarise when you do free trials with streaming services? You don't stick it in your calendar, because I do now, the cancellation date before I have to pay any more.
Oh, I completely overestimate my abilities to remember to shut something down, for sure.
But the other thing is that if you're subscribing through Apple, so if it's like an app subscription, you actually can cancel it immediately. So you can subscribe and then cancel it immediately, and you still get the full free trial.
Yes.
So that's a tip that I always give to people as well, is just do it all in one motion. Subscribe, cancel, and then you just get the free trial and you won't get stuck in
that. That is a very good tip. It's all very well we're laughing about this and saying, these are small sums. And as Claire rightly says, if they're bringing you joy, for the price of a pint in London, then actually, how bad is that? But the audit thing is important, isn't it? Because if you're thinking it doesn't matter, it really, really does, doesn't it? Because you talk to people all the time this has kind of got out of control. And all the money that's leaching out of their budget into this could be feeding into savings and investments and, of course, pensions, couldn't it?
For sure. And I think at the moment, with cost of living crisis that we're having, the fact that we're all potentially spending money on things that, if we're not getting the benefit out of it, it is worrying, and it's coming out every month and people will forget about it.
But if we put some numbers on it, say if we had someone in their 30s, and we're going to be conservative here and say they're just spending an extra $200 a month on what we might call lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation rather than saving or investing in, are we able to kind of count that forward and see what that actually would cost them in terms of by the time they get to retire?
Yeah. So every personal contribution you make, the government tops it up by 25%, which is amazing. So if you were to spend that money into your pension, you would get £50 tax relief on top of the £200. And over 30 years, let's imagine you've got 8% growth. Let's take some inflation off of 2.5%. And let's say that you're paying 0.7% in fees. It would be around £200,000 extra in your pension, or £7,900 per year, and that breaks down to £660 per month in your retirement income.
I mean, it's quite surprising, isn't it, how those numbers stack up? Because we're only talking about extra £200 a month of discretionary spending you don't need to do. And I think we've already established a lot of us are doing more than that.
One of the things that always really helps people to make good moves financially is making it really tangible. I think so much of this tends to be abstract. It tends to be this kind of, I spend way too much on subscriptions, or, I can feel my lifestyle inflating. But if you can make it really tangible, so doing direct swaps, and so this is how I incrementally started paying more into my pension, is I literally took the thing and cancelled the thing and immediately set up the direct debit straight into my pension. So a direct swap of this thing that I'm not getting value out of versus this thing that I'm going to get so much value out of. As you walk past the coffee shop, put the £4.50 straight into your savings or your investments or your pensions. Honestly,
I would be on the opposite spectrum of you.
Really?
If you don't have an emergency fund, you should not spend your money. Set up savings, set up investing, then what's left you spend it. And if there is nothing left, live a very humble life.
It's mindset though, isn't it? I think it's hard for people. I would struggle to do that. I would find that really hard.
I mean, this is the point, isn't it? Because I do want to talk about, I think we've all agreed it would be good to stop this, is rein it in. But how do you do that without making your life feel really horrible? because Edoardo is obviously someone with a huge amount of self-discipline, kind of probably more than the rest of us. But we don't want to make our lives a misery. I mean, I take your point, Edoardo. If you have, if you can't afford to spend, don't spend. The last thing you want is debt. And Claire knows all about this. She's talked about it in the past.
But I think it goes back into like priorities, right? Because like what's important to my life, groceries, personal care, tiny bit of entertainment, but eating out, doing takeaways, buying alcohol. These are all things that I think you can cut by 50% tomorrow if you want to.
I kind of disagree that those things are useless. So I did, like you said, I had 27 grand's worth of debt. And to put that into context, that was almost exactly my annual pre-tax salary at that point. Yeah. Let's not talk about how that was able to happen. That's a whole other show. But
you were there, and there it was.
I was there, and I paid it off over 2 years, and I didn't completely deprive myself and my family of all of those extras, because always in the back of my mind was like, I could get hit by a bus. I could make myself miserable to pay off this debt in the minimal amount of time, and then I could get hit by a bus. And so I trod a middle ground, and I ring-fenced some spending that was going to enable me to like take my kids to Legoland while they were still little enough to enjoy it. And my eldest is 11. He's on his school residential at the moment, and I can feel him slipping away. I can feel him slipping away towards his friends. And so I'm really glad. I don't care that it took me maybe 3 months longer to pay that off, and I wouldn't care that it took me 6 months longer to fully fund my emergency fund. Like, I think you have to live your life.
The lifelong joy of that connection.
Exactly.
We live in a very unpredictable times. You will lose your job. The rent might increase. There are so many things that might happen that if you're already in a very bad situation, it's better to sacrifice 6 months of your life to be back on track and then restart over, than finding a middle ground, What if you get fired and you lose your job and you're like 20k in debt? What's going to happen?
What insulates me from that fear is the fact that I have been through all of those things. I did have to leave my job when I was deeply in debt. My husband got made redundant when I was 7 months pregnant. And we are resilient, and we found a way through all of that, and we're fine. So I think absolutely do everything that you can. I'm not diminishing the importance of an emergency fund. That would go against everything that I believe in. I just think that find a way to ring fence some stuff, and it might be a really small amount. It might be like your child's swimming lessons, or it might be like enough to go for an ice cream every week. It doesn't have to be like a big thing. I certainly wouldn't be advocating for like, go on the holiday of a lifetime, because you'll never get that time back. Sure. Also, crucially, they can make the difference between getting to the end of that journey of paying off your debt or building your emergency fund, or making yourself so miserable that you give up and you kind of swing back in the other direction and you fall completely off the wagon. So some of it isn't even like emotional or desirable or sentimental. Some of it is just purely practical. There are a lot of people who just wouldn't be able to carry on with that level of discipline.
Yeah, has to be sustainable, doesn't it? I mean, Alex, you talk to people all the time. I mean, I'm guessing quite a lot of them have a wake-up moment like Claire had when she suddenly thought, okay, things need to change. What do they tend to be?
For sure, we see sometimes people needing to withdraw in order to make purchases rather than to live on, which is worrying at the moment, yeah. And something that, you should try to make sure your pension is there for you to live on after you retire, rather than to allow you to supplement an income currently.
Claire, you talked a bit about, recovering from this debt mountain that you had. Did you do the basic things? I'm guessing you did. Like, you rein back on the where you bought your groceries and the things we've talked about earlier on.
We did like a full audit, and we did shop at a cheaper supermarket. We renegotiated any contract. We kept our old phones and went SIM only, all of those things that we could, we cut out a lot of waste.
Did life feel grey and hard?
No, I would say, I think because I was kind of documenting it, people knew that we were doing it, so it wasn't...
Well, that brings me to the next thing, actually, that whole idea we talked about, other people can drag your spending up, but other people can also help you in this journey to reining it in, can't they? Because it is all about having conversations, and the transparency can be really helpful. Yeah, I mean, you've got features, Edoardo, haven't you, on your app about to help people have those conversations?
I think so, but that's one of the main problems with personal finance. People don't like to talk about it.
It feels embarrassing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels a bit embarrassing, but obviously for couples, for example, we've got features where you can share each other bank accounts within the product. So essentially you can move both partners' accounts in a single, we call it space, that you can access, and so you can track each other's spending. So the problem of double paying the Netflix at the same time, it goes away because you would see duplicate subscriptions right away.
So we need to really wrap this up now, but I'm gonna say budgeting apps. These, I mean, everyone should be using these, right? I bet you don't, Alex. You're looking at me like a man who does not use budgeting.
No, I don't. Potentially
Are you not
should.
tempted by that to kind of help you rein stuff in?
I think I just need to be more organised generally. Just outside.
They do it for you, don't they?
Yeah, that's probably what I need. Something that just organises it for me. The thing is, you get to the end of the day and you just want to sit on the sofa, and this is why I spend all this money on all of these streaming services. So I can sit
in the sofa and enjoy them. I mean, yeah, I get it. I do. I mean, there's some very, even if you don't like technology, you don't want to use apps, there's kind of basic frameworks. So there's the kind of 50-30-20 rule. Claire, talk us through it, how it works.
Yeah, so the 50-30-20 rule kind of dictates that 50% of your spending is on essentials, 30% on enjoyment, 20% on building your net worth. So whether that's paying off debt or whether it is savings and investments. I would say that the 50-30-20 rule is completely inappropriate for most people within this cost of living crisis. I think that most people's essential bills are way higher than 50% of their income. But I do think that it's a useful framework to work to that you can adapt.
So if you play with the percentages.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say your bills, and work from your essentials. So let's say that your bills are 70% of your income, then you maybe look at 15% and 15% or 20% and 10%. But I do think that's very theoretical. You have to pair that with something like a budgeting app. I always say that budgeting, two-step process. There's the plan, and then there's the tracking and monitoring, and most people never make it past the planning stage. So they lay out this beautiful budget that really works on paper, and then they don't tie their budget to their actual spending.
Interesting point. Obviously, I'm pro using budgeting apps, but the way that I budget is actually quite different from most of the people, in the sense that I don't set specific budgets. I simply look at the income and the spend per month, and if I know that there is a positive difference in between, I'm saving.
Yeah.
So if the income is £2,000 net and the spend is 1k or 1,500, there is £500 saved every month.
So you're not believing targets. You don't want to kind of
aspire to a you're gonna spend hours setting targets. You're gonna do all of that, and then you're not gonna follow through. So it's that's eventually what happens to everyone, right? So
well, you say that, but I mean, I use tech to kind of move money around so that it takes the decision part away. So I, set up my bank account so that a certain amount automatically disappears into my potential tax pot, a certain amount disappears into other pots, and then it's just, and then when the balance I see is the balance I can spend, because the rest of it's gone to those pots. I find that really helpful.
And I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and what you're doing with that, kind of intentionally or not, is that you're treating all of those things like saving for tax, saving for your pension, all of those, you're treating them like another bill. Yeah. And it's kind of like, the Julia Donaldson book, A Squash and a Squeeze? It's based off an old proverb, but it's kind of, farmer goes to whoever it is, local wise guy, and says, my house is too small. And he's like, okay, bring your chickens in, and then bring your goat in, bring your cow in. And then at the end, he's like, it still just feels really small, but there's loads of animals in here. And he's like, okay, so now just take them all out. And suddenly his house feels enormous. And I think that if you do that, where you kind of get yourself used to that, lower amount of spending and that lower kind of limit that you have, then if you do then want to like increase it a little bit, you really feel the benefit of it.
Mind games.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you have to gamify it for yourself.
Thanks, everyone. I really love these episodes where we kind of end up with a bunch of things people can do, don't you? You know, the kind of practical stuff you can actually kind of take away. If you found this episode helpful, please do rate and review it so that other listeners like you can find us. If you missed an episode, it's not a problem. You can catch up anytime on your favourite app, or you can watch us on YouTube. Next month, we're going to be discussing marriage. Is tying the knot actually worth doing from a money standpoint? We're going to dig into the legal and financial ins and outs of saying I do or I don't. Here's the disclaimer before we finish. Please remember, anything discussed on the podcast shouldn't be regarded as financial advice or as legal advice, and when investing, your capital is at risk. Thanks for being with us.